We are anticipating Councilor Labange, but I think he might be dropping in, or he might leave early.
A little bit late.
Okay. But we always appreciate his presence, and I'm not sure Councilor Hussar will be here. But we should get started, and that way we could be opportunistic with our time and move this committee. So, CLA, like to report on number one?
Sure. Item number one relates to verbal presentation about the Bureau of Sanitation relative to Los Angeles River watershed projects. This item was continued from your September 27th meeting.
Great. I did not want to shortchange or minimize the significance. I wanted to make sure we had the opportunity to oversee and review the whole report. So I thank you for your hard work, and that way we can give it the attention it deserves. Please.
Good afternoon, Councilman. I'm here on behalf of my director, Enrique Zaldivar, who could not be here today, but he was here at the previous meeting,
Right.
and he asked me to complete this presentation and to convey any of your recommendations and directions to him. I would like just to, for the purposes of the audience who were not with us last meeting, we went over a number of projects that are being done in partnership with other departments in the city that are leading to improving water quality in the LA River, which is our mandate for the Bureau of Sanitation's compliance with water quality. And we believe water quality is one of the essential elements to revitalizing the LA River. And we believe in that very strongly. Last time we discussed the completed projects in the LA River or in the LA River area that is benefiting the LA River, including improving the water quality in the LA River, such as the projects in the treatment plants where we reduced and removed ammonia from the waters to eliminate the toxicity in the water and to provide a better habitat in the LA River. Plus, the extensive reduction in sewer overflows is helping making the water and the river a healthy place and safe water. Today, I think what we'll finish this presentation by highlighting some of the underway projects. That's on page 17, Councilman.
Okay.
And then kind of look forward into which way we're going and how we can partner with your committee and with your staff along with the other departments on leading the way to achieving a revitalized LA River and hopefully have that in place in the near future. On page 17, some of the underway projects is the LA Zoo parking lot, which is a Proposition O project. This is a stormwater capture and infiltration. A lot of the projects that are capturing stormwater and inflating stormwater underground is helping reduce peak flow into the LA River, which is an essential element to allow for the revitalization of the river, in addition to improving water quality. This project should be complete by August of next year, probably sooner. It's under construction right now. Another project is the North Atwater, which all of you were present, and the councilman, you were present at the groundbreaking, which is I think it's the first project that using some money from the settlement agreement that we had on the sewer spills, we were able to use that money for a good cause that was leveraged, and some other money came in to help do one of the I think great projects to help green the area, plus improve water quality, restore stream next to the LA River, and give access to the river. I think this is going to be a landmark project, and I think we're proud to be to play a role in making this happen.
So this is one of the first that actually touches the river in of
Exactly.
itself, correct?
Yeah, this is one of the first that's going to be right there by the river. And it's interesting, a few years back, Lupe, if you recall, and she was working with us on trying to come up with projects to help use some of the money to have penalty funding instead of having go to the federal government, to use it locally here
Right.
in great ways. And this was a great project that we were able to envision and put in place. The next one is the South LA Wetlands Park, which is in Council District 9. This is another landmark of what's possible. You can take stormwater and create a park. This is something that probably can be replicated across the city, which can provide a water quality benefit plus enhancement to the community and provide a park and a natural habitat. And this project It's funded through a number of sources of funding, including Prop O, also plus settlement funding and penalty funding, plus other funding that was available. So this is a great landmark also that will be hopefully completed by December 2011, that will also showcase what's possible.
And I think what's also, what we need to amplify here is that this facility is not adjacent or near the river, but it serves an amazing form of relief for an area that's very park poor and a very dense and industrial zone that is crucial for that pocket. So would I be accurate in saying that?
That's very accurate, and also what I think is critical is establishing connection between our residents and the river. This drainage area drains to the river. Is always far from the river, drains to the river, and having this connection between cleaning the stormwater and creating this wetland and allowing the residents of the community that's park poor enjoy and establish connection. I think having a connection with the river at that location would be great. People need to know that this location, what they do in that community, has an impact on the river, and this is a great example, and we need to establish that connection, which you always, coach us all on how to do it and what we need to do to establish that connection between the residents and the river.
Thank you.
So this will make the river a front yard, as you always say. Another project is Garbanzo Park. This is in Councilman Weezar's district in CD 14. This is a project also away from the river, but drains directly into the river. This is another settlement agreement, penalty funding that is being directed into a great project that's going to take stormwater and put it into cisterns and treatment, and is going to be used for irrigation for the park and hopefully enhance this effort. This is also a water quality improvement plus a peak shaving for the flow that goes into the river. Another project that we had the groundbreaking recently is a low flow diversion. This is on 7th Street, close to Santa Fe and 7th by the Elia River. This is a project that's taken a storm drain and diverting it into the sewer system. This is an effort to reduce bacteria that's reaching the Elia River in that area, and this is another way to help improve the water quality in the river. And this is a great project. Also, it's not visible on the street. It has a huge benefit. It's about 1 million gallons of flow during dry weather that is now being diverted to the sewer, but that has high bacteria levels that now it's going to improve the water quality. In the future, I think at some point, the ideal thing is to take that 1 million gallons per day flow and beneficially use that water. But this is an interim project to help reduce bacteria and allow us for water quality compliance.
And I'm honored to welcome Councilor Tom LaBonge, honorary council member.
Thank you very much.
And in that 1 million gallon, I mean, when I look at Potsdam plots, what they've done in Berlin, Germany, when they actually capture these water flows underground, and they've created systems where they actually run that water back to the surface and actually are irrigating their walkways and their greenways and rejuvenating the aquifer. I mean, is that what we're talking about?
Exactly, and I'm not trying to navigate this, Councilman. What possible is to capture that water and use it. This is valuable water, and sometimes if it has a lot of pollution, it becomes a problem. I think we should look at it as a potential resource. Yes, the future and what's possible, like we did with this, what we're doing with South Alea Wetland and hopefully Albion Park and other locations, is to take that stormwater, capture it, treat it, make it into a wetland or a cistern, capture that water and use it. In this case, something that we had to do, we have limited budget, it's only $700,000, but it does a great job. It allows to remove a high source of bacteria that from reaching into the Elia River. That's going to help us with the compliance, but will also improve water quality. But I agree with you, I think the future is to beneficially use that water.
Are these designs and plans allow us to perhaps phase out future uses that we are describing?
Yeah, I mean, you have a capture system, so you already have the system to capture the water. The only thing is where that water goes. Right now it's going to the sewer. You can easily divert that and have it go somewhere else. So in the future, you can have it go to a wetland or something else.
So we go places like in South LA, around Main Street and those areas where you don't see too much of green. It's mostly cement and asphalt. those become good candidates for that water.
Sure.
I mean, if we were to put greenways. But then we talk about cost, we talk about maintenance, we talk about everything else, so, but I understand.
And one of the things that I know Enrique Saldivar, our director, and I have been talking about this new concept we talked about a little bit is creating a new concept called neighborhood greenways. And neighborhood greenways is a way to green small areas of the city, whether it's a alley, whether it's a paseo, or whether it's we have a alley in Councilman Labange's district coming up soon that we're going to have groundbreaking for North Hollywood Alley, creating something that allows for either greening or capture of stormwater, creating some connection between the community at the small level. I think that's a huge potential. That's going to help us tremendously.
Great.
Some projects that are in the future, I'm not going to spend too much time, but to me is one of the greatest opportunity that we have is as we are trying to comply with water quality mandates, such as the bacteria water quality requirements in the LA River or the metals that are required by the state, is a huge investment that has to be made over the next 10 to 20 years. If we can somehow leverage that money to help hopefully make some of these future visions for the LA River possible. So I think that's something we're looking at, investing close to $8 billion for water quality compliance over the next 30 years. For the LA River, so far we have about $1.8 billion identified as needed for the next 20 years. So I think there's a huge opportunity for us to work together to meet our water quality mandates, improve water quality, and provide something that can fulfill the vision of the river. So we have funding that we can build on and leverage. An example of the North Atwater project is an example of what's possible. South LA Wetland is a great possibility. Albion is a great project. Stratham is another project I want to highlight. Is the Stratham park, which is a project in Sun Valley, where it's in Councilman Cardenas's district, where it's a old gravel pit that we bought through Prop O, working with the county. We're going to convert that to a wetland, stormwater wetland. It's going to capture runoff from 1,000 acres that would go to the river, carrying pollution. Now it's going to capture 1,000 acres of runoff now, and captured in this wetland, and will be infiltrated underground in an area that is able to take that much water. It's in the eastern part of the San Fernando Valley. It's going to help us for water quality. It's a great thing for the community in that area. It's a great addition. Plus, for the river now, we're reducing the peak flow from that area. So this is a huge potential. We already own that property. We bought it with the county. Now the county is taking the lead on the planning, which we're part of, and we'd love to come back at some point and share that with you through a joint presentation. I think that vision of having this in place, I think, will be a great example of what's possible once we marry water quality with potential availability of properties. Albion is another example of what's possible, and Taylor Yard is another project. Green streets and green alleys and standards and all that is something that we are working very hard with our partners in the Bureau of Engineering and Planning Department, Building and Safety, Recreation and Parks. And one thing that probably you'll see coming soon to your committee, whether it's the Plum Committee or Energy and Environment Committee, is a low-impact development ordinance that is it's before council committees now, which will help do more capture of stormwater and infiltration of stormwater and for new developments and redevelopments in this city. We believe this is something that's going to be beneficial once we make this an institutional change. This is something on page 33 that we are really proud of, and hopefully we'll have this in place over by the next year, hopefully.
Can I ask a question there?
Yes.
Years ago, the Department of Water Power used to pump water out of the river and put it in what they call the spreading basins, the area west of Forest Lawn Drive. Due to pollutants, both from the plume of Burbank and general pollutants in the water, they quit doing that. But they did develop a check dam out there. Do you know where that check dam is?
Yes, a rubber dam. Yes.
And that was designed by a DWP engineer. I'd like to see more rubber dams around the river, especially where you could back up the water, back the water up so there's a view, it's not just concrete. So put that in the back of your mind. I'd love to see some of these check dams down in low-flow seasons like today, where it would be down, let's say, at Olympic Boulevard, and sanitation crews could pull the debris out, because nothing's worse than what we said in Long Beach after a storm with all that debris. And some of it is just sitting there.
I think it's a great idea, Councilman. Let me
Okay.
suggest something that we can, either your committee can instruct us to do, is to have us try to inflate that existing dam to work with DWP between Recreational Park, Sanitation, and DWP and the Corps of Engineers to see if there is an opportunity to try to reinflate that dam by the Forest Lawn area by 134 by the LA Zoo area, and maybe inflate it slightly and see what it looks like, because we have it existing. It may need some repair, but maybe that's the direction that you can give to us and we can work together and hopefully make it possible to have it viewed.
So that would be more than happy to direct you to do that. I was hoping you had already done it already, but but I'm glad it's at this stage of the discussion, and if we can put together an implementation plan, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, we'll go back. I'll take the lead in working with
That
Water and Power
great.
and our partners to make sure that it's doable and what needs to be done.
Have you seen what they have in Tempe, Arizona?
I've seen Tempe, Arizona, and it's
That
beautiful.
scale, that's
Yeah, I mean,
pretty.
I've flown over it, been there and seen it, and it's amazing in that area.
Something like that around downtown would be amazing, wouldn't it?
And I think just since we have an existing, rubber dam, let's see if we can inflate it and see what it looks like.
Yeah, that'd be great.
That may create some interest. And I think I want to leave you with the an opportunity and maybe looking into the future. We are working with the CLA, Rafael Piero and his staff and the county on a joint effort for a funding effort to help comply with water quality. And it's going to be a sustainable source of funding. There was Assembly Bill 2554 that gave the county the authorization to move forward on collecting such a fee. It will still require the public approval and the public vote. However, I think if the public sees the potential of greening the city, revitalizing the city, making the city a great place to live, while improving water quality, I think people will support something like this. So we're glad that the governor approved it and the state legislator approved it. It's now we're working with the stakeholders and others on what's possible, and hopefully we'll see something that will provide us a sustainable source of funding that will make these things a reality. With that, I think, Councilman, I want to thank you for your leadership, for your committee's support, and I think the future is bright for all of us, and I think we're proud of representing the 3,000 employees of Bureau of Sanitation that work hard every day, whether rain or shine or day or night, to provide services to our residents. We're very proud of what we do every day.
Well, thank you very much, and will this be accessible through the website? Can we put this on the website so that way people can hear it and more calmly look at this great presentation? It's an eye-opener. I think a lot of folks don't understand your significant role with the Riverway and what it future could be, and meeting your goals as a department and just meeting the quality of life issues. Councilman, any
The only thing I want to say is I do want to work, and I hope you could join with me on this, Ed, to transfer all street cleaning to sanitation. Right now, we spend our focus with sanitation on cleaning the drains, everything from the drain down. But if you get the street cleaned before it gets to the drain, it makes a difference. So to focus on that family of, I don't want to call trash family, but the community of trash that goes down the street, the network of, thank you, Lupe, very good. So that we can get it before it goes down the river. The cleaner you make the streets, the cleaner the river's going to be.
Urban slobber.
Yeah, so if we could look at that for the future and the development of a department that focuses on that, I just want to put a plug in for it. And these check dams are real important, because when people see water, I truly believe and this is a beautiful day in Los Angeles, why we're special people in this world is because of the San Gabriels and the Great Mountain and the basin, and then the waterway, whether it's any water body, but also the Pacific, which is so strong. Thank you very much.
Just a couple of points before you leave is that one is, as we look at future stormwater fees for the Alley River, looking at the standards for maintaining ecological habitat in the river, could you help us with defining the ecological system standards for water flow in the Los Angeles River? So as we look at how we address the overall system and understanding its ecology, we can be a little bit more focused on those impacts. Also interested in getting an update on the stream protection ordinance that we discussed a few months ago. Can you come back with an update on to this committee on this issue? In terms of just getting a pulse on where we're at and what's going on there.
Well,
And I do want to thank you and your staff and integrating the Alley River website with the SAN programs, because they go hand in hand, and the impact is just tremendous. So again, thank you so much for your hard work.
thank you very much.
You guys are like the unsung heroes in this process. Thank you very much. Okay. Item number 2.
Number 2, Los Angeles Regional Water Quality Control Board verbal briefing on the reassessment of recreational uses in the engineered channels of the Los Angeles River watershed.
Great. Hi, good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon. If you could just give me a minute to
Sure. You gear up there.
help.
Say it again? Yeah.
The lake's not on.
What?
The lake's not on.
The last guys,
He's Mormon too.
my setup.
Again, we're married, you have to bring him back. No, just because you gotta spend time with your kids. No, you gotta spend time with your kids. I feel bad, I pray every day. My son, I had a pound day, went to Hollywood. You know, I gave him
I can move this. Why don't we just move the microphone?
Oh my God. Yeah.
Thank you. Oh, can we, like, make it fit?
Everybody won these.
Yeah, I know. Should we get in a
Put it down here.
Hey, what do we got, water power tomorrow in council?
Yeah, the charter amendments.
All of them?
Yeah,
What's your recommendation, House? Do you have a recommendation?
prove them all.
Is the mic on?
There might be some amendments to them.
I never saw the ad.
Yes, these are.
Well,
IT first.
you still have option 1 and
Okay.
option 2.
You got a copy of the report?
Oh, perfect.
Not with me, but I get you. Yeah.
There, you did it.
Yay, thank you.
All right. Mr. Puede.
Okay, I'll just put it right here. I hope everybody can see. Okay. Where's my enter? Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Ginachi Amar. I am an engineer with the Los Angeles Regional Water Quality Control Board.
Welcome to City Hall.
Thank you. This is my first time.
Great,
Okay.
great.
Our agency is part of the California EPA, and our mission is to preserve and enhance water quality in the Los Angeles region for present and future generations. Your staff asked me to come today to brief you on a project that we're working on regarding the LA River watershed. And we are conducting an evaluation of the recreational uses supported by engineered channels in the Los Angeles River watershed. The purpose of this reevaluation is to document the nature and extent of such uses to ensure that they are protected at the proper level. Okay, these pictures are from the Los Angeles River Expedition. I think that was conducted by George Wolfe in 2008. We will be evaluating 2 types of recreational uses. We're going to look at the water contact recreation activities such as swimming, wading, kayaking, and fishing. And we're also going to be looking at non-contact recreation activities such as the hiking and the walking and the biking that might take place around the waters. The recreational uses can be classified as existing, which means that they're actually occurring right now, potential, and this occurs where there are plans to put the water to such uses, or where there's public desire to use the water for recreational purposes.
Doctor, I can't help but notice the look of awe and incredulousness in the people's face in the audience. They're like, they're
Because
really
of the
going.
kayaking that's going on? Well, it did happen.
I know it did. There's an expression like, you gotta be kidding me. But go ahead.
Okay, then we also have the category called the intermittent use, which is for recreational uses that occur when some of the waters flow seasonally, because not all rivers flow year-round. And so when they do occur, we call them intermittent uses. Okay, now the project focuses on engineered channels, which are waterways that have been modified by straightening or lining of the bottom and the sides with concrete or riprap. These modifications were made from the late 30s through the 1960s to convey stormwater to the ocean as quickly as possible in order to reduce the potential for flooding in urban areas. However, they also create swiftwater conditions during and immediately following storm events, making it unsafe for certain recreational activities during this period. In addition, they have steep slided slopes, and some of them have restricted fencing, which may limit recreational activities to varying degrees. However, more recently, local jurisdictions, along with nonprofit organizations, have been working to increase accessibility and enhance recreational prospects of these engineered channels for the benefit of urban and resident visitors. The regional board will be conducting assessments of recreational uses in and around such channels in the Los Angeles region, beginning with those in the Los Angeles River watershed. Okay, this is a map of the water bodies in the Los Angeles River watershed. The thick lines depict the engineered channels. There are scores of other unlined channels throughout the watershed, but they will not be the focus of this assessment. We have about 205 stream miles of engineered channels in the watershed, and that constitutes about 47 water body segments that we'll be looking at. Okay, the slide actually depicts the elements of the recreational use assessment that we'll be doing. We're going to have field monitoring, which is going to consist of user surveys, photo documentation, anecdotal accounts, and that sort of thing, data and information collection and analysis, recreational use surveys, and a review of plans for future recreational use. We're currently working with the regulated community, as well as environmental groups and grassroots organizations, to coordinate volunteer monitoring throughout the watershed. We are also coordinating our efforts with some of your staff in relation to the Departures River Story Share project. We have developed a bilingual user survey as part of our evaluation, and we hope to work with your staff to incorporate it in some form in this series. Consideration of watershed and municipal planning documents, such as the Los Angeles River Revitalization Master Plan, and activities such as the development of a boating program for the Los Angeles River, will be part of this reevaluation. We held a workshop to initiate this process on September the 26th of this year, and representatives from cities, counties, environmental agencies, and grassroots organizations were in attendance. Field reconnaissance began last week, and we expect to conduct a year-round seasonal recreational use survey starting in the spring that will follow through to the next spring in 2012. We will be holding additional workshops periodically to apprise the stakeholders of the status of the project. We expect that the potential outcomes of this evaluation would include the determination that recreational uses are supported in these channels, recreational uses are limited in these channels, the potential for recreation in the channels exists, or that at present the recreational uses cannot be supported. The results of this assessment will dictate what future actions, if any, should be taken to modify current recreational use designations in these channels. And based on these results, we'll be making recommendations to our board to determine whether or not we should make amendments to the water quality standards for these areas.
Doctor, when we speak to the different impacts and issues, how is the notion of safety being addressed in this questionnaire or in this process?
Well, we only have jurisdiction whereby safety refers to the exposure to contaminants in the water.
Oh.
We do not have jurisdiction over the channels, and therefore that would be the county and the Army Corps of Engineers. What we are tasked to do is to make sure that the water and the waters of the state are safe.
I see, so it's a water quality.
It's a water quality issue, yes.
Okay, thank you. One, I want to First of all, going through this process, we eliminated many myths as to what is real and what isn't, but it also addresses the potential, like as it's stated in your presentation, and we're all at point zero right now, it seems, and trying to understand its capacity. So I'm very thankful for your work, and is there anything we can do to help you in your process?
Well, your staff has been very open to coordinating their efforts with us.
Good.
And so we hope to continue to be, to work with them, particularly Ms. Lupe Vela.
Yes.
Has been very, very helpful and very informative, and we hope to be able to work with them because we're going to be conducting a lot of volunteer efforts throughout the watershed to try and document the activities that take place.
Thank you.
And she was the one that informed of the collaboration you're doing with the KCET
Right.
to document the historical accounts of recreational use. And we have developed a bilingual survey as part of our assessment, and we were talking about potentially incorporating it into this effort that you're doing. So they've been very receptive.
Thank you, Doctor. Again, anything we can do? Councilman Labange, any questions or
I just
observations?
wanted to say, I think it would be helpful too, if maybe Lupe, if I could just ask that the committee identify what would be A areas and B areas. A would be, let's say, the Sepulveda Basin and back, because that's very natural in there. And maybe between the north end of Griffith Park and Elysian, it's very natural areas that have complement of and then, because it's going to be a century of work to transform totally, but to get off the, because it's always amazing how much progress we have made, Ed, in your leadership, is because of the challenges of the horizontal as far as trapezoidal and all of that. So maybe we can look what would be the closest to parks that would make ideal partners. So you know what I'm saying, Lupe. So that's good. Oh, thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Okay, that being said, again, appreciate everything you've done, and look forward to continue to work with you, and look forward to facilitating anything else we can do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Okay, item number 3.
Number 3, Bureau of Engineering report, and CRA and Planning Department to report relative Los Angeles River related projects, the establishment of Los Angeles River Special Projects Office, and the implementation of Los Angeles River Revitalization Master Plan.
Great. We have with us BOE. Good afternoon, sir.
Here to give the report on behalf of the Bureau of Engineering for
Great.
the LA River Project Office. Just covering a few items from our regular report.
Just for the record, let's have your name.
Yes, my name is Larry Hsu.
There's you, and your position is?
Is the manager of the LA River Project Office.
Great,
of the Bureau
thank
of
you.
Engineering. Thank you. Thank you for reminding me. All right. We have been working with the county and the Army Corps of Engineers on this River Cooperation Committee. This is the governmental arm of the three-tiered management structure. And what we've developed recently is a process to review projects jointly along the river so that projects are coordinated and we can jointly review them to make sure they're both comply with the intent of the River Master Plan, the county's 1996 River Master Plan, and the city's River Revitalization Master Plan. And so we've developed a process. We're going to start reviewing these projects on our next meeting, which is January 10th, 2011. And we're developing a website with the information on how to submit projects into this process.
Okay.
Under the federal efforts, process is still ongoing with the WRDA project as well as the ecosystem restoration feasibility study. The only update I have for this effort are new federal funding requests.
Right.
We've requested $1.78 million for the river ecosystem restoration feasibility study, $5 million for the WRDA bow tie demonstration project, $200,000 for the Encino Channel restoration project, and the Department of Water and Power has submitted $312,000 for the Headworks ecosystem restoration feasibility study.
Okay.
As Adele mentioned, river projects, North Atwater Park Expansion Creek Restoration Project, we've had a groundbreaking. So I have really little to add from what he said. Project partners, Department of Recreation and Parks, Bureau of Sanitation, Department of Water and Power, and BOE has done the design and will be managing the construction for the project.
Right.
We expect the construction time to last about a year, followed by a plan establishment period.
Okay.
In the Sunny Nook River Park project, we are currently addressing community concerns with removal of mature pepper trees. So we are revising the design of that project, and we're having a meeting with the community to try to reach some resolution on that decision. We continue to work with Recon Parks and Department of Water Power on the lease for that project.
Okay.
And finally, Legion Valley Bikeway project. The long-awaited dedication has been scheduled, I understand, for December 4th at noon.
Where are the trumpets? I mean, we waited how long?
December 4th, yeah.
Let's not go there, but thank you for that. I mean, I think 1991, we started the design, and I went through 3 redistrictings, and we landed where we landed, so I'm very glad to see that. Are the lights functioning?
I think so.
Because I saw the fencing, so, okay.
Can I just ask a question?
Sure.
On the lights, up when we had a rash of public property theft, they stole all the brass or the copper wire, and some of those lights are still out. Now that daylight savings, it's real tough. Could you report back to committee on the progress of getting the lights fixed on the whole river bikeway, which is key?
I will do that. Thank you, Councilman.
Good, okay, thank you very much.
And I did see the river keepers out there painting out the graffiti. I think we just laid out the asphalt, and someone tagged the whole floor and came back and we cleaned it up, so it's going to be one of those challenges. But thank you very much.
What's interesting about this part of the bikeway, and I've spent some time looking at it, the neighborhood is right there.
Right.
The neighborhood has great accessibility, so you have people walking, and then you also have speed bike riders, so there's a little conflict that we got to remind people. And then you have people actually enjoying the river in a new way. It's one of the nicest parts of the river, so there's some awareness that we got to maybe have the right signs to say, watch for walkers.
Actually, Mitch O'Farrell is here, and he was going to give a little bit of a description and address some of those great opportunities. So I don't know if, Mitch, if you want to come up right now or you want to come up later? Whatever you say.
Now.
Okay.
Now, before Tom leaves. Absolutely. Come on up, Mitch. Just introduce yourself, please.
Mitch O'Farrell, Senior Advisor, Special Projects for City Council President Eric Garcetti. And let's see, as far as the potential conflict between bicyclists and local walkers, we've been addressing that for several months now, including a few on-site meetings. And then I had a roundtable discussion last month with the bicycle community and local residents. And I've been working with DOT, of course, and what we're doing is we're having signs posted every 1,000 feet that say bicyclists yield to pedestrians, all up and down the path. There will be sections that have dedicated walking path where it's wide enough, and then in other places it'll be more or less a sharrows between bicyclists and walkers. At every single pedestrian entrance will be signs posted that say, let's see, let me remember exactly what they're going to say. It's going to indicate that traffic will not, let's see, well, it's going to say traffic will not stop for pedestrians, something to that effect, at all the pedestrian entrances. There is a working group that will probably convene on a regular basis to assess if the signage that does get posted is going to be sufficient in the long run, made up of neighborhood council members and some folks from the bicycle community. Right. And the actual dedication on December 4th, we're planning a celebratory sort of half day around this, and we'll have some information booths. We also have KCET's Story Corps will be taping interviews from folks that very day. They'll set up a little sort of kiosk, and they'll be conducting interviews on the spot. And we'll probably start at about 10 o'clock a.m., and then the actual dedication ceremony will be 12 noon. So I think the turnout's going to be good. There's a lot of interest in this. The location will be at Crystal Street Park. We're going to close off the cul-de-sac there off of Fletcher Drive, and we'll also incorporate the other side of Fletcher Drive where the Rattlesnake Park is. And I think that it's a good location because this is where the new underpass starts. And so bicyclists and walkers can, enjoy the new underpass and continue on the bike path all the way to the end and come back. And the focus of the celebration will be non-motorized. So we encourage everyone to attend and ride their bicycles from home if possible, because everyone knows the parking around there isn't so great. So as much as we can, we want to ride our bikes or take public transit or walk to the actual dedication.
Yeah. I'll be flying in from DC that morning or that night, so I'll try my best to use my bike. Just
Okay.
kidding.
Well, we'll forgive you if you can.
Park it around the corner, you know?
Right.
I think it should be bilingual or trilingual. I know there's a lot of Asian Americans, Spanish, maybe a little Tagalog, because the bikes that the guys who ride those derailers, that's what, they're not called derailers anymore.
Fixed gears.
6 gears, whatever. Not the fixed gears. No, the derailers are the speed guys with the
Yeah.
hot pants. They go so fast. They go so fast down the way that it worries me. Because there's the beautiful thing about the river. It's really natural there, and there's so many bends and
Right.
turns. So just a reminder, and maybe some extra paint, Mr. City Engineer, on the road to watch for walkers. And just got to say that.
There is the pathway over at the Rose Bowl that indicates that. So we're going to take a field trip and take a look at what they have on the ground over there, because we might be able to apply some of that same signage on the new bike path, especially at either end
Right.
where people enter and perhaps all along.
Will we be able to see those markers that help the police department know where they're at? Is that going to be?
It's
also
my
planned?
understanding that the mile markers are not part of the project.
Right.
Is that right?
I think that's my.
So what we need to really make sure of is that the street ends are clearly marked, or have the discussion about placing the markers on that side of the river as
There's
well.
more people, there's an accident, it's going to be hard to get them there.
Right.
So, only because you have more conflict.
Yeah, and as far as, one of you brought up if the lights are fired up or not.
Right.
I don't believe they are. So we might need some help from LADWP on making sure that we get them powered up by December 4th. I know that the striping and the signage will be going in kind of as we speak until December 4th, so that on that date, we're ready to go. But it will be critical to have the lights on by then.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mitch. We also have CRA and Planning Department. Are they here? Thanks for being here.
Yeah, you betcha.
Good afternoon, folks.
Good afternoon. Jason Neville, planner at CRA, and also working with the LA River Revitalization Corporation.
Great.
I'm going to talk in a moment about the River Corporation's updates, but before that, we have two of my colleagues from CRA to talk about the two new proposed redevelopment project areas and the Cleantech Corridor status. So
Right.
I'll defer to them.
Thank you.
Do you want me to go first?
Allison, you want to start? This is
Sure.
good news.
Allison, we'll start to
Hi,
dance.
I'm Allison Becker. I'm a associate planner. I work for the redevelopment agency out of the Hollywood office, and I'm currently coordinating studies that are looking at the potential establishment of a new project area in Northeast Los Angeles. And I've been a couple times now to this committee. I was asked today to talk a little bit about a significant grant award that the City of Los Angeles received from the Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development through their inaugural launch of a Notice of Funding Availability for their Sustainable Communities Program.
And I think congratulations is in order as well for your hard work.
Thank you very much. It was a remarkable accomplishment for the city. This was a highly competitive national call for projects. There were close to 700 applications nationally, and we were one of 38 that were funded, of which we were the 7th or 6th highest award in terms of dollars. So while we weren't actually granted the total that we requested, we came back with a $2.25 million award, essentially to do good planning to support the implementation steps for the LA River Revitalization Master Plan.
Beautiful. Congratulations.
Just very briefly, this is, we're calling this the NELA Collaborative. It's a joint group of Department of City Planning, Department of Transportation, and the Redevelopment Agency are the kind of lead city departments that will be participating. We are anxious to also speak with the Bureau of Engineering and the LA River office to see how we loop them into our planning processes. We'll also be focusing in with these three departments on the issues that are related to connectivity to the river from the residential communities within the stretch that we're studying, and looking at the possibility of doing analysis on existing land uses and zoning where we have neighborhoods that now have people-oriented uses along the river, but we still have heavier industrial zoning which abuts it. So that'll be the primary exercise for planning for place. And then we're also going to be looking very intently at linking our workforce development, planning for workforce development and economic development with our existing labor force and our existing businesses in the area. So it's a project which is not only trying to develop good planning, good land planning, but also to focus on our human capital assets within the area.
So the application itself, any literature that pertains to the goals or the approach, can that be accessed through any one of the websites that we have available?
Yes, at this point, I do have a flyer which I can just pass around for your reference. It's in English and Spanish. It's something that we're using as we're doing our open houses this month on the proposed redevelopment project area. But the full grant proposal, which outlines the collaborative, is posted on our website, which is crala.net/NELA, N-E-L-A, and there's a link to the full proposal there.
Great. I'm going to make sure we have that accessibility to the public, those that are listening, and those who have questions. Perhaps many of the answers could be addressed here. Questions could be addressed through these answers. And
Ed, can I just ask a question?
Sure.
Working with the railroad has a lot of property along the river. Have you contacted Union Pacific or Metro Link or whoever owns the right-of-ways?
Not yet.
Yeah, okay, because I think that's going to be the long, challenging
Road
time.
ahead.
Yeah, on that deal. And then also, Mr. Reyes,
Sir.
are we going to bring high-speed rail into this committee?
well, it depends if they get funded. But so far, we are addressing their EIR, their FEIR, and we're staying on top of their corridor plans. And there's two options now, one that runs along Southlander Road and one that goes under Elysian Park and pops out somewhere north of Taylor Yard.
Right.
And so looking at those scenarios, we have to stay on top of what does it mean physically,
Right.
and then what does it mean socially in terms of how we're going to be impacting the local businesses and traffic patterns and all that good stuff.
Right, okay, good enough.
Yeah.
I thank you.
Okay.
Bid you all a good afternoon.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you for being here.
You know who you say that? Walter Cronkite, I think. I bid you all.
All right, so the NELA Collaborative, the NELA Collaborative is a different, how can I put this? There's parallel processes occurring here, correct? So you have the CRA process, and that in itself is its own program, and then the NELA Collaborative is another program.
Right, which is intended to essentially set the stage for successful revitalization. I think over time with the city's experiences with these types of initiatives, you often have several pieces in place, but not all of the pieces in place. And so this will really enable the city departments and community partners to work together comprehensively.
And this federal fund is not funding the CRA effort.
No.
Okay,
No.
just for the record, I
Yeah.
want to make that very clear.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's funding everything else.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Next.
Good afternoon. My name is Josh Romer. I'm an assistant project manager in the downtown and east side regions of the CRA. So I'm going to talk a bit about our efforts on the Cleantech Corridor right now. As you likely know, the Cleantech Corridor covers more than just one project area. It's a large area, initially about 4 miles north to south, covering the industrial land on either side of the Los Angeles River. And our efforts are devoted to making this into a cluster of clean, sustainable manufacturing and development of clean technologies. Most recently, just on November 4th, we released the results of an Urban Land Institute panel. We co-hosted with the Department of Water and Power, basically this group of professionals across the development spectrum, economic development, real estate development, planning, financing, and asked them to look with a very critical, candid eye in terms of the city's efforts on developing clean tech in this area. The report was released November 4th. We presented it to our board, and it was received very well. We also presented it to the stakeholders community based in the Arts District. And we're very pleased with the study, and we think it will be very helpful to basically guide our work program moving forward. As we move into developing our budget and work program for next year, we're going to be basically having the report by our side the whole time, because we think they're very good recommendations. They're based on professional experience from across the country. I handed out a few hard copies. The report is available electronically both on the ULI's website and also the CRA's website. We think it's very interesting, and you'll note on pages 29 and 30 there's a number of recommendations that are planning recommendations that the panel recommended that we basically, to the degree possible, that we do some joint planning with the river revitalization work, that our missions might seem somewhat different. I mean, the Cleantech Corridor is basically about jobs and sustainable manufacturing, whereas the river is more about recreation, but they're actually all the same. I mean, it's all about making a sustainable community where people can live and work and recreate.
I'm sure glad you said that.
Okay, good.
They are
Glad I
not
thought of
different.
that.
They are very, very much alike, and to me, the ecology and the riverway the recreation is one facet. There's so many other facets to it, so I'm glad we're saying that publicly, because I think folks don't have the full breadth of understanding of how dynamic this envelope of space is, and jobs is one big piece. So thank you for saying that.
Yeah, agreed. And so the panel was very impressed with the opportunity in this area, and I think the river revitalization master planning was part of what they were impressed with, that we're already thinking kind of in very outside the box sort of ways about jobs and recreation. So
Great.
That's it.
Thank you, sir.
Want to mention CASP stuff?
Oh, I think that Claire is here to talk about the CAS, correct?
But the redevelopment plan component of it.
Oh, okay. So, Claire Bowen from City Planning is here. She's been working on the Cornfield Arroyo Seco specific plan. So any specific questions about that, she's definitely the best person to ask in the room.
Right.
I guess that I can also mention that there's a parallel effort going on. We're working together with the planning department towards the development of a redevelopment project area, basically using the coterminous boundaries of the specific plan area. And
Right.
so some of the EIR planning some of the work will be done jointly. And so we're basically on the same track in terms of adoption. And so I believe it's fall of 2011 when the redevelopment plan could potentially be adopted.
Right. And just to say specifics, we are looking at rezoning whole sections to increase mixed use, mixed income environments that allows for residential, commercial, light industrial to be stimulated in areas around rail stations. And that's the goal of specific plans. So I want to make sure we were very clear on that. Thank you. Anything else, sir?
Yeah, and then my update is on the River Revitalization Corporation. Just want to let everyone know, and there's some agendas on the back, that the River Corporation's meeting on November 16th here in City Hall in the mayor's office. We've been meeting previously at CRA's offices. CRA moved to some new offices that aren't as good of accommodations, and the mayor's office has been helpful in setting up the meeting in the mayor's press conference room, so we'll be meeting there. CRA began transfer of money, seed money, to the River Corporation, so they've got some money in hand to start doing some of their work, which is good news. With the help of Jill Soriel from your office, council member, we submitted a request for $30,000 in Cdbg funding to convene a ULI panel similar to the one that Josh was talking about in the Cleantech Corridor, centered on the Lincoln Heights Jail and to do a feasibility and marketing study to find out how we can turn that underutilized city property into a catalytic river project. We also submitted an application jointly with the Watershed Council and MRCA for an LA River Watershed Coordinator grant position. So again, trying to bring money to LA River Watershed. We will be focusing very strongly on Prop 84 parks applications. In the last round, round one, there was only one project in the queue for Albion Dairy and did not receive the grant. But CRA was submitted 16 proposals, and we were awarded 7 of the 16. So we want to learn from the successes of the ones that were successful and the ones that weren't successful. And the River Corporation is going to be very aggressive about pursuing Prop 84 parks funding in the River Corridor in round 2, which is going to be set into motion in spring of next year. So I want to let you know about that, and we'll be reaching out to your staff to find sites in your council districts that we can target, although there's certain eligibility requirements that may preclude some.
Right.
We're continuing to search for an executive director and other consultants such as grant writers and real estate professionals, continuing to drill down on site-specific opportunities such as Lincoln Heights Jail or Cedar River Loop, and we've been continuing to try to get lists of surplus property from the General Services Department, and Jill has been very helpful in trying to get that for us.
We're all one family, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's our update, and just wanted we will be working with your staff on the Prop 84 site process.
Great. Okay, well, thank you very much for that. Thank you for that hard work. Getting some traction, Planning Department, maybe last on this item.
Nice and warm. Good afternoon. I'm Claire Bowen with Los Angeles Department of City Planning, and I wanted to just give you a brief update on where we are with the Cornfield Arroyo Seco specific plan. Josh was able to give you a brief introduction to the plan that we have, kind of partnered now with the CRA, which we're really excited about. We kicked off kind of our joint cooperation with a meeting on October 23rd with the community, and I wanted to thank the councilman for coming and for his remarks at that meeting. They were a wonderful way to kind of kick off that event, and we were very pleased with the turnout and the feedback we got from the community. Kind of moving the plan forward, there was an official presentation at the City Planning Commission on November 4th by Planning and the CRA, getting the formal approval from the Planning Commission to move forward with a preliminary plan for the specific plan, for the redevelopment project area. So our next steps are then on November 1st, we actually issued a revised draft of the specific plan. This provided us an opportunity to just provide a kind of a clearer document that we thought was more legible in terms of what the regulations were. We're kind of taking advantage of the fact that we were kind of now going to be moving forward with a revised environmental process. That plan is available at the Chinatown and Lincoln Heights libraries if folks don't have access to it online. It's also available here in the City Planning Department, as well as on our website, which is cornfieldsla.googlepages.com. And on November 3rd, the revised notice of preparation and initial study was issued. As you may recall, on March 9, 2009, the specific plan did embark on the steps to develop the environmental impact report, but because now we are going to be a redevelopment project area, it seemed prudent to kind of redo the notice of preparation and the scoping meeting so that the redevelopment project area and the specific plan can share the same environmental document. So it slows the plan down a little bit, but it allows the redevelopment project area to be implemented faster by kind of sharing the environmental, and also allows us to share resources. So we are going to kind of reissue that notice of preparation. Again, that was done on November 3rd, and that comment period will close on December 15th. And as a part of doing that notice of preparation, you would then hold a scoping meeting. That scoping meeting is going to be held tomorrow at the Goodwill Center on San Fernando Road at 342 North San Fernando. We'll have 2 times. There'll be a 3 p.m. meeting and then a 6 p.m. meeting. And again, that's how we did it last time. And I'm actually excited to say that because we're now a redevelopment project area, there's kind of one area that we're expanding in the environmental analysis to talk more about historic resources, since that's always an important part of our redevelopment project area, is to analyze that. And so Ken's going to talk a little bit about that process.
Just one observation in terms of the hard copy access to it. Mead Housing is, as you know, is a housing authority site with many families.
Yes.
And you have the Ann Street School right next to it.
Mhm.
Is there any way we can have a hard copy placed in either facility so that the folks who are living in that pocket who might not go to Chinatown would have access to it?
Sure, I can talk with them and see if there's a place where we can have a document located where people could come and kind of check it out or
Yeah.
review it.
So that way in the future, folks, we can say we made it available to you and you might not have access to a computer, but it was there.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank
It's a
you.
good idea. Thank you.
Ken Bernstein, Principal Planner for the Citywide Planning Division and Head of the Office of Historic Resources. As Claire mentioned, because we are now collaborating with the Redevelopment Agency and doing this joint environmental analysis, we're taking advantage of the opportunity to bring the Survey LA project, our citywide historic resources survey, into this project area ahead of schedule, and to identify historic resources using our Survey LA citywide historic resources survey methodology and have that feed into the environmental analysis and the analysis for both the redevelopment plan and the specific plan. So we are piggybacking on the environmental work without increasing the cost or the timeline or lengthening the timeline. We believe we're able to do the complete historic resources survey work for this area within the timeline, specify and keep us on schedule for the adoption of the specific plan and the redevelopment project area, and know much more as a result about the historic resources in this area, looking at opportunities for adaptive reuse, as well as identifying any potential impacts as a result of the plans for this area.
Great. And we won't go over this now, but maybe I'll go over the whole staffing issue at another point in time. I know there's a discussion on the whole restructuring of the planning department and everything else, so I want to make sure this doesn't fall through the cracks. So we'll keep on that, but we'll talk about that hopefully next time.
Okay.
All right?
Great, thank you.
Well, thank you very much. We can note and file, and hopefully would like to have the department staff report for next month. Next item number 4.
Number 4, Department of Rec and Parks, DWP, Fire Department, General Services, Police Department to report relative Los Angeles River access and uses, and the establishment of the Watershed Infiltration for Supply and Environmental Restoration Committee, and identification of resources for maintenance and access for the river.
Okay. Would like to come on up, folks? What do we have from the respective departments?
The only department that's not here is Fire Department. The person called in sick, so he was not.
Okay. But they are the rescue team, right?
I think we'll do a recommendation 1, which is security, so it'll be police, and at least for now, general services. Okay, correct. So you can introduce yourselves.
Good afternoon. I'm George Villegas. I'm a commander. I'm the assistant to the director of Office of Operations.
Frank Pazazis, Senior Management Analyst, GSD, Office of Public Safety.
Thank you. I'd like to give your report.
Well, as it relates to our portion of this, and we had been meeting with the other members of the Fire Department, General Services, et cetera, part of the subcommittee, and we came up with several recommendations. First and foremost, that I know we talked about earlier with one of the previous speakers about not having markers. I think it's extremely important that we have markers on those walkways, not necessarily for us so that we can find folks, but rather so that they would know where they are when they're actually calling for services, whether they're fire rescue services or their law enforcement related services. So we have recommendations in terms of markers, general information and signage related to safety messages. We need some type of cell booster or some type of resource so that people that are using cell phones in those areas are able to actually call out. There's a lot of satellites that don't work within those areas depending on what's the vendor. In talking to the fire department, they're requesting flotation devices, a flood warning system that be in place there. That's necessary. Continuous public education on water safety, water quality, and habitat conservation. The augmentation of swift water rescue, staffing, and equipment is what the fire department is requesting. Access points for heavy equipment, should it be necessary for any type of emergency response. Training and equipment for first responders, for the river keepers and others. to have some input in terms of the design, in early phases of the concepts of the reports for the river-related projects. Significant in terms of the 32 miles and the 200 projects that are going to be undertaken in this overall endeavor. You're going to be required an augmentation of police personnel, fire, general services, and to police and or provide security. Another alternative to that would be the potential for contracting security services in and around the parks area.
And we're in lockstep with LAPD on these recommendations. We handle the contract security, and I guess we'll be the main security and policing for the parks areas and the Yellow River project. We are in agreement again that there should be some sort of mile markers or notification boxes, and as we do the technology aspect as well, it could be done in conjunction with the technology and to do the mile markers. You could have notification boxes that would be multifunctional. They could work as mileage markers, two-way communication, help call boxes. There are all sorts of alternatives that you can put in there. They can house AED devices. They can provide information. They can be locations for video cameras. They would be going back to our 24-hour dispatch and communication center. We would have analytics built in, so we'd be able to know, depending on the individual parks, the individual areas of the water, what exactly we're looking for. We'd be able to use them in conjunction with the cameras to see what's going on, and then use it as a force multiplier, dispatch police and security services as necessary to the locations, depending on what the incident is going on. Those analytics could also be used in conjunction with a lot of the requests from LAFD for swift water access and rescues and alerts as well. Those can also house cell boosters. They can be Wi-Fi hotspots. There are lots of different applications for them, and they'd be part of the overall security technology design.
Now, when we speak to number of incidents and record keeping in terms of reports that are generated because of different types of crime, can we get some kind of a quarterly report as to the type of crime and number of incidents that occur along this corridor? Is that something that you guys could begin assessing and recording?
We work off of the same system. In fact, we're in the process of integrating our computer-aided dispatch systems, which does the tracking and then report generating for statistics and crime statistics, along with LAPD's ComStat information. So absolutely, we could do that.
And not to glorify the gangs, that's not my intent, but for the families and the folks who are using the river corridor, especially as you get near downtown, you do have a presence of gangs and gang violence. I saw it the way they were going after each other and the way they were tagging the new phase that we just finished. And it was all about who was going to claim which territory. I think that's something that we should be aware of, how we use that information, because I don't want to give them any unnecessary publicity, but the way in which we inform maybe the neighborhood councils, we inform the local schools, what parents should look out for, the things that are occurring. Just to avoid any tragedies or getting caught in the crossfire of any kind of violence. I want to get your reaction to that. What is your
Well, Councilmember, I think that's part and parcel of what we do and what we should continue to do in terms of identifying trends, patterns, or issues in the community, specifically as it relates to public safety, and then providing that information through a feedback loop via either the senior lead officers to the neighborhood councils, the council offices that are impacted by that, and as well as the community groups and the constituency within the communities that are impacted, so that they have a firsthand knowledge of what actually is occurring beyond statistical measures and actual numbers, because there's also that fear of crime that we're trying to address as well.
But if there's a house that is rented out and we know that's a house where the gangs hang out, let's say one gang or another, or has a history of reports, that's something we should be aware of. I went through there with my son and his friends are not from the neighborhood, and I was just trying to let them know, okay, this is this gang over here, that's that gang over there, avoid that at this hour, don't go through there when it's dark, and just kind of give them the heads up. But that's because I grew up in the area, but a lot of folks who will be coming through using the system are not going to have that kind of insight.
Well, I think that's going to be a position that the city needs to take. How is it that we want to provide and advertise that this particular house is a gang house and be careful, and oh, by the way, don't come fishing in this area, or don't ride your bike here because it's unsafe. I think the message that we want to send is completely different to that.
I'm not saying don't. What I'm saying is be careful. What I'm saying is let's be aware of your environment.
Right, and I don't disagree with you, boss, but what I'm suggesting to you is that when we start saying that this particular one house in the Greenway area, the area of this river project, is particularly dangerous. We've had 6, 7, or 8 shootings in this area. Is that the message that we want to send, or are we trying to let's address this particular area and try to mitigate the actual problems?
I think you and I are saying the same thing. Right. I think what I'm trying to elaborate is there are certain areas that have trends where we have to be aware, and if we had crime statistics, we map out where these tend to occur, then folks can decipher for themselves, what places to be looking out for, instead of citing one house. But I use that as an example of what people know. So we have to figure out a system.
I think the comp stats in place, and that is the system's actually designed for that type of application. It really shows you, based on specific areas, what type of crimes are occurring, trends in crimes, things that will eventually be used in crime analysis, but that can really pinpoint hotspots and what's going on and what needs to be addressed.
Right. Okay. And well, again, I appreciate your hard work, and this is an evolving process. As more people come to this corridor, we have to be more alert as to what we need to get done. And so the recommendations that are coming forward are based on the collaborative effort of all the groups, correct? As you meet? Okay. So we have another recommendation, another group of folks. Thank you very much. Thank you. So, Rafael, will you be reading the policy recommendations from the group?
Would you like to hear a report from Rec and Parks first,
Yes,
and then we could combine them all together?
Yes, let's hear from Rec and Parks. Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Councilmember Darrell Ford from Recreation and Parks.
Thank you for your patience.
No problem. Love being here. Just very briefly, we did report on Recommendation 2 at the last River Ad Hoc meeting. So just as a quick update, Recommendation 2 wanted to discuss a process for determining maintenance resources necessary and access to the river for recreational use. And the department continued to participate with the staff focus group along with the Bureau of Engineering and other city departments, working with LA County to really develop what the River MOU looked out for the master use agreement. So we continue the work in that effort. Obviously, it's a very detailed and difficult process, but we're still working through it with the county in order to get to that. And ultimately, when we are able to implement a master use agreement, it'll make river projects and future efforts to determine what the parameters are to maintain and to operate and to do programs and such in the river under one agreement much easier and hopefully a lot swifter.
If you were to measure how much you've accomplished versus how much you need to go, how would you indicate that?
I would say we've made a lot of progress. I mean, we're at the point where we're at least talking about the same framework of a document, and I think the steps you need to take in order to flesh that out to really get down to the details. That's where we're at now. But I think it took us a while to kind of agree on the same type of a framework, and we've gotten there. And I think that the River Project Office at BOE has done a lot of the heavy lifting there, and they deserve a lot of credit. But I think we're on our way. It's been an interesting process, but I think we've made a lot of movement forward.
It's like 80%, 20, 60,
percentages
50.
are tough things so late in the day.
Come on, now you can do it.
It's just numbers. I was never really good at math.
Is the glass half empty or half full?
It's always a half full glass. It's always a half full glass, and we're making progress.
All right, I'll ask you the question again next time. Be ready. All right. That's right. And the next group, we have another group.
Yeah.
I think that rounds it out for now.
Weiser.
No, I'm sorry.
DWP.
DWP?
Weiser.
Are they here?
Is there a DWP rep?
I think actually they were. I don't know if there's. Oh, they left. DWP left.
Oh, that's
4:30.
I mean, I didn't meet the 4 o'clock deadline.
Emergency bag call from Ramon.
Okay. All right, so can you just go over the recommendations then? Ralph?
Yeah, just to kind of round out the recommendations based on the elements of the first 5 years and then the 5 to 10 years, we've come up with a series of recommendations which we think kind of encompasses these. So number one, instruct BOE to incorporate security agency input and concerns in early phases of projects, specifically from PD and GSD. Number two, instruct police, general services, and fire to incorporate LA River in future funding requests for expanded safety and security services. Number three, instruct the City Department Task Force to seek funding for signage, mileage markers, and emergency response program for the LA River. And the last one, request the River Cooperation Committee to review, evaluate, and provide advice on river access programs, security and safety efforts, and seek funding for a public education program on water safety, flood management, and water quality. And
So who left? The Department of Power personnel?
Art Castro, I think, and
Okay, we'll find out why later. So we will note and file recommendations 1 through 3 for this report, and to request departments and offices to update report recommendations 4 through 7. Would that be accurate?
Yeah.
Okay, so yes, and I'm looking forward to working with Department of Water and Power. They've been a tremendous help throughout this whole process. So a little anticlimactic they left so soon. So our next item.
Yeah. Item number 5, motion Reyes, Garcetti, Cardenas, Labange, relative to departments and entities to report on the feasibility of establishing a pilot non-motorized boating program for the river.
Oh boy, you guys are on the spotlight, huh? People are getting excited about this. It's there's a lot of energy out there. There's people making movies and people, all kinds of stuff happening on this issue. So you guys are on. Please.
Well, good afternoon, Council Member Kevin Regan, Assistant General Manager with the Department of Recreation and Parks. And I have with me today John Kapitsky, who is our Aquatics Director, and Ken Harakawa, who's one of our Aquatics Facility Managers.
Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. At your last meeting on 9/27, I did come and give an oral report based on the Council File 10-1475. That's the Council file that instructs the Department of Recreation and Parks to form a working group in collaboration with many other city departments and nonprofit organizations, as well as the Army Corps of Engineers, the county, flood control,
Mr.
Mountains
Regan,
Conservancy.
I hate to interrupt you, but I think your silhouette.
Oh.
Is,
Well, that's part of the whole thing.
Hey, we could. There you go.
Oh, well, that was.
You wanted us to guess who was there, right?
I should have thought about that. Now I can lean back. Well, so what I wanted to tell you, Councilman, you understand the motion. I mean,
Yes.
it came from you, and so we're just here to respond.
Yes.
And what I wanted to let you know is that we did follow your instructions to, your exact quote was, just get started. Let's get started. And so what we did on November 10th is put together a meeting of nearly 40 different folks that came from numerous agencies all across the city, as
Wow.
well as federal and county. And Lupe was there and helped me facilitate, which I greatly appreciated. And we made a lot of progress in that meeting. We raised a lot of issues in a large group, structured group discussion, and we have a direction. But coming out of the meeting, we formed 2 subcommittees, and those subcommittees are the subcommittee to address programming, access, legal issues, and other issues within the river in terms of starting the non-motorized boating program. We also set up a committee to discuss safety, education, and health issues. So we're moving forward with those 2 subcommittees, and within that structure, we'll do the work. And then our intent is to come back to a larger meeting and kind of report and get something together that we can bring to you that's a formalized program that's answered a lot of the questions about safety, the questions about access, the questions about jurisdictional and legal issues. Those all have to be worked out, but we have a good start. And we have a lot of folks that are very interested, and a lot of people volunteered for every committee, not only from the city agencies, but from these wildlife and river nonprofit organizations. People were all there. They volunteered for the subcommittees, and
Right.
we're off to a good start. That's I wanted to update you on the meeting. I wanted to tell you that we had made good progress and had a good discussion.
Beautiful.
And then also, unless you had any questions before that, we also have a small, a short presentation with some pictures. And what this is, we thought you'd be interested in this, is that John and Ken took a trip down the LA River in kayaks to try to find a location that would be safe to do this, and kind of just like get it started, like you said. So I'm going to turn it over to John and let him show you some of the pictures and some of the things that they saw. And he'll also bring up some of the issues that they thought about while they're out there. And I think it's important for the folks here on the committee and possibly for the folks that are listening to understand that these individuals are highly trained, experienced kayakers, as well as life-saving personnel. So we trusted them to do this, and that's why they did it.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. John Kapitsky from Recon Parks. And I want to mention that Ken here, my kayaking partner, not only paddled, but was able to take pictures while he paddled down the river, so he is extremely trained.
So a waterproof camera, huh?
Indeed. So on October 14th, we made an exploratory trip along a 2.5-mile stretch of the LA River in the Sepulveda Basin area. The purpose of the trip was to determine the feasibility of using this stretch of the river to support a paddlecraft touring program for the community. The trip was made prior to any of the recent rainfall and represented the river at a very low flow rate. The trip began approximately 1 mile west of Balboa Boulevard at a point where the cement river channel gives way to natural bottom. Up until this point, as the river winds eastward, there is insufficient water to buoy any type of boat. We used plastic sit-on-top kayaks because they are highly buoyant, because they have an ability to resist damage from rocks and terrain, and because this type of boat is most easily used by inexperienced paddlers. The initial access to the river required entry down a steep but stable concrete embankment. The boats were hand-carried down the embankment and launched into a narrow opening in dense brush with a water depth of less than 6 inches. One of the first assessments we made was that this entry point would only be accessible to the most agile and adventurous members of the community.
And how heavy are those boats?
They're about 50 pounds.
So you have to be kind of strong, too.
It's a two-man job.
Okay.
Okay. At several points in the first stages, the paddler has to navigate by pushing with their hands off the river bottom, or by shimmying their hips to drive the boat forward, or even by digging the paddle into the river bottom for leverage. And there are occasional moments where the need to propel the boat requires water contact for the paddler. And one of the foremost concerns and questions that we had is regarding the quality of the water. However, gradually the area of open water expands and the depth is sufficient to float the boats. The vegetation is lush. However, there are ever-present signs of debris, including plastic bags that are trapped in the tree lines and some backwater eddy points that have accumulated some rather dense loads of floating trash. There are also periodic spots along the riverbank where homeless encampments can be detected, and there are fishermen working the water as well. The first segment concludes as the river crosses Balboa Boulevard, and it may be from this point that any public touring program may ultimately need to begin due to the ease of access and parking availability. In total, there are actually 5 separate segments along the 2.5-mile course, with divisions created by natural and man-made impoundments or rock features that require the paddler to exit the boat and haul it over or around the obstacles. From there, the river widens and deepens as it winds past Lake Balboa to the north and the Balboa Golf Course on the south. A more extensive bird population is evident at this point, and it includes herons and egrets. However, the riverbanks become much steeper, and they also become higher and densely vegetated. The steep and vegetated riverbanks would make it very difficult to arrange for evacuation in the event of an accident or a medical emergency during a touring session. Through the latter stages of the trip, there is deep and relatively still water with little obvious current, and really the river looks more like a river at this point. The exploratory trip ended back in shallow water in an open area within sight of the Sepulveda Dam wall, just beyond the Burbank Boulevard overcrossing. This exit point would provide easy access and stable footing for the paddlers, as well as solid ground and good access for vehicles to collect and trailer the boats. So in total, our paddle took about 2 hours, and it was an interesting mix. It was urban yet natural. Our sense of the trip as an experience for the community is that it would be helpful to provide interpretive services, such as bringing a biologist or a naturalist on the paddle. And another thing that had crossed our mind is to perhaps combine the paddle with a tour of the Tillman Reclamation Plant, which is extremely close by, and that might provide some context in the discussion of the water issues and the LA River. And I think with that, if you have any questions or anything regarding the slides.
In your experience, I guess the old saying is, there. I mean, is this a place where you think you'll have a level of popularity where people will want to experience this?
There's a trip there. There is something there. Okay. I think it may initially be more as a curiosity. I know that I have actually had people inquiring, and during our trip down the river, there was enough of an audience that we created some awareness of what we were doing. So I think there is something there. I think it's has to be coupled with something more to make it a valuable experience. I think there needs to be more than just a paddle. There needs to be something interpretive added to it to give people the real, true value of what's going on.
So other agencies that deal with nature, they deal with like the Audubon Society. You go to a place and there's an interpretation of, a person from the urban core will not know what to look for in birds or where they nest or their flight patterns. So this has that type of capacity, that kind of potential in terms of interpreting your space?
I think absolutely. I think that from the many years I worked at Lake Balboa, there is a interest there. There is a thirst for the understanding of it's an interface really between that river and the urban environment that's all around it. You've got a golf course on one side and a man-made lake on the other side, and what's this river that's running right down through the middle of the whole thing? And it's a system. It makes sense. It is engineered to some extent, but people are interested. They want to understand. And when they see those herons and they see those egrets there, they're so majestic, right in the middle of the San Fernando Valley. It really does kind of pique their curiosity.
My assumptions are that there's probably maybe 2 or 3 other strips, if you will, corridors along the river. If you go down to the passenger freeway, if from there going north, where the cement bottom actually does not exist, you have the natural habitats bursting through. I'm assuming we have those types of opportunities that are maybe in 2-3 mile stretches. Would that be accurate?
Yes, and I think that's about the appropriate length for these trips, is about 3 mile max. In our experience at Lake Balboa, we have a fairly well-established kayaking program, and the clientele are relatively novice paddlers, but they're driven by kind of not only a fascination in the skill of kayaking, but they're really interested in the area. And I think that they form the obvious clientele, at least initially, for this.
You think the public would want to pay for this?
I think they will. I think it's going to be interesting to engineer the cost or the price factor in. I know that for some of these organizations, after the meeting that was referenced a little bit earlier, I was approached by several of these groups, and they're very interested in providing this service. I think that they're aware that there is a wellspring of interest in this. So I think so.
So we would have to look at different structures and how we could facilitate the notion of accountability and quality of service versus monetary issues. And that, to me, I'm leaving it in very generic terms because I want to leave it there for the moment before we get into any kind of hardline positions about how do we recuperate our costs. But to me, ultimately, it's the public safety factor. It's how do we keep the corridor safe, not only for the human being, but for the ecosystems that are there. It's a double-edged sword. If more people come in, are they going to go after the egrets? Are they going to be so curious to see where the herons are nesting? And, you start getting into that whole discussion. And how we violate their space is going to be something we have to watch out for.
I think that it has to be done very thoughtfully. I think there are some extremely experienced people that are proponents of the use of the river in this way, and I think that it just, again, has to be done with thought and planning. I mean, the department does design these programs, but these other providers also, I think, are a very good resource that we have to tap.
Mr. Regan, anything else you want to add? Or?
No, just to thank John and Ken for taking that trip to show us that it could be done. Again, to thank Lupe for all of her help and guidance on navigating, no pun intended.
That's a good choice of words.
This whole process. To let you know that we're not trying to bog down the process, but there's a lot of issues to work through. Many of those issues are the legal access issues, and the agencies that hold the keys to allowing us into the river will not grant that approval unless everything is checked off. And those are agencies like the Army Corps of Engineers, the Mountains Conservancy, and the county. They were all very interested and all very attentive at the meeting, but they also made no commitments until we kind of got into this process, identified all the different factors. And then there are the health and safety concerns about the water itself. The fire department was very vocal in the meeting about their concern that dating back to the death of Adam Bischoff in the 80s, which ironically, he died, fell into the river, got swept away. The fire department tried to rescue him, and they failed. And eventually, his body was recovered by Recreation and Parks employees in boats in the Sepulveda Basin. The Sepulveda Basin was under about 15 feet of water at that time. And so the fire department remembers that. And ever since then, they've been on an educational campaign to keep people out of the rivers. So we talked about how do you bring people back in and do it safely with all of the different, telling people that, look, we're going to do this at a time of the year when it's safe. We identify that it's the low flow periods, and we have an organized program with interpreters, and it's structured. But how do you continue to teach the public that it's not okay to get in there in the very high flow times of the year? So that's one of the things we want to look at, as well as the environmental. But we're going to do it. We've got these committees set up. We're going to move forward, and that's what we're looking at.
And I really believe that once we create more structure, we set parameters and start creating those safe zones and deal with a lot of these safety issues, that the natural pool of the market, if you will happen. And because people believe in nature and they believe in the healing powers of water and all that good stuff, that I think we'll have a very exciting opportunity. I want to thank you, Mr. Regan, because I know yourself and John and everyone else in the management are under incredible pressure, and to continue moving forward in this, I can't tell you how much I appreciate it, because I know it's not easy. On top of everything else that we're having to go through in the city's period. So I appreciate all the opportunities you're creating and not giving up. So thank you for your response.
Thank you, Councilman.
And we can continue this item till January of 2011, and then we'll move forward and hopefully piecemeal more as we go forward. Okay, and I want to thank John. Thank you, sir, and Kevin. Ken. Thank you, Ken. Thank you so much. Next.
Okay. Number 6, Bureau of Engineering report relative to funding necessary for implementation of Los Angeles River Revitalization Master Plan during the next 10 years.
All right, Mr. Shu.
Good afternoon, Ken. Larry Shu.
There you go, sir.
The LA River Project Office.
Where's the doctor?
The doctor is at a meeting with LA County right now.
Okay.
This report is in answer to a motion, 091737 through the Housing Community Economic Development Committee. And the motion asks what, get to BOE to develop an estimate for the funding the implementation of the River Master Plan for the next 10 years. And so essentially that's a difficult task. Things change a lot, on the river frequently. So this is our best guess. We took existing river priority project list, and where we have cost figures for some of those projects, we include them. But in projects that we didn't have cost figures, we used a unit cost and multiplied by the area we know that the project will take, and developed a cost that way. We escalated the cost into the future, and the unit costs are based on rough numbers from projects BOE has already done. For instance, some of the river bikeway, greenway projects, some of the park projects, and that's how we developed this cost. I should caveat that there are some placeholders in here that can be significant dollar amounts, such as we did not identify the amount of money to implement some of the projects that would come out of the U.S. Army Corps Ecosystem Restoration Feasibility Study.
Right.
That's a big unknown dollar amount.
Right. So is there a way to identify jobs? I think when we talk about funding for the River Master Plan, it's one area of importance, but if we're ever going to get the attention of the federal government, the administration, given our economy, if the private sector and the public sector knew how many jobs we can generate through these efforts, is that some way you can factor that in one of these, in any of these scenarios?
Yeah, well, I think there are ways. There are short-term jobs associated with just constructing the park itself. There are long-term jobs, probably working with maybe the CRA and planning to estimate the benefits to the area.
Right.
Economic benefits to the area, especially with the River Greenway, Bikeway, that corridor, having that additional transportation corridor could be very valuable.
But we do have scenarios where we are speaking to the notion of breaking the cement, and like, for example, on the boat tie in Taylor Yard, breaking that cement out, redesigning it so that it does not compromise the flood control function, but enhances it. How many jobs would that take to break out a percentage of that cement pocket, if you will? I mean, I keep thinking how grandiose we were in the 1930s, where we had the audacity to cover the whole river with cement. That really was a job creator. I mean, they need a way to bring dollars into the economy. They hired all these thousands of, and I saw the pictures. I know they were there. I mean, there was thousands of men putting cement. Imagine the thousands it would take to take it out. I mean, there's a lot of potential there in terms of we do this systematically. I know I'm wishfully thinking here, but at least if we can identify the jobs, I think that's something that we can't let get away because of the importance of our economy today and the need to create those environments for job generators.
Absolutely, I agree with you. That's very important, and it's probably a number that could be quantified. I know we've done those calculations in the past for other projects.
I can brag to the different stakeholders, the Congress members, the senators, the unions, the folks that come here representing the president's administration. We can start quantifying and providing that profile. I think our assertions become that much more realistic, and their investment that much more worthwhile, because we keep asking for money, but what are we doing with the money? It has this effect, jobs, and what does that do? And we go through a whole economic ripple effect in terms of stimulating economies. Alrighty. My understanding is that we are supposed to be forwarding this report to HCD. Okay. Did you I want to add anything else? Or are you okay?
Yeah, I wanted to add. The last page of we have a table in the back, and the projects are categorized by River Greenway, and then parks development costs, park acquisition costs, and then federal ecosystem restoration category. Then those amounts are totaled. Then we have another category, the last page of the table, page 5 of 5, that has a list of projects that are very conceptual and are having to do with water supply and flood control, and those are the type of peak flow attenuation type of projects, and we really don't have very good costs for the projects on this table, and but it's just we want to recognize that will be a significant piece sometime in the future, so we just included that additional information.
Gotcha. And that's critical. What's not being stated here, which I don't think it needs to be, but what we're already investing on bridges and everything else that we already know. So I'm hoping that people are listening and or review this committee's discussion is that we still need a lot to do. We still need a lot more, but we're doing a lot already. So I just want to keep that in the balance. Thank you, Mr. Shu. Thank you. Our last item? So we're further say CUD, right?
Yes. Okay. Number 7, Planning Department report relative to Los Angeles River improvement overlay. This matter was continued from your September meeting.
The Rio. Did we kind of cover this in the last time you were here? Not really?
No, not really.
Okay, good. All right.
Councilman, again, Ken Bernstein with the Planning Department along with Clara Bowen. We did cover our update on the Cornfield Arroyo Seco specific plan. Of course, the Rio is very closely linked to that, but we wanted to provide you with both an oral and you have the written update from your questions at the last meeting. The department will be resuming its work on the Rio, responding to issues that have been raised by the city attorney's office. We'll be resuming that work within the next few weeks with the intention of bringing back a revised ordinance for consideration at the Plum Committee. We are targeting the end of January. So that is work that's going to be prioritized very highly within the citywide division of planning. As you mentioned, we are going through a department reorganization during that time, but that work will remain within the same division. It will be newly renamed. We will have a policy planning and historic resources division, but that work will remain within the policy planning function, and the citywide planning staff will continue work on that Rio as it moves forward.
Fantastic. Great. I was hoping we were going to lose momentum there, but I'm glad that we're here now. Anything else that you'd like to add, Claire?
No, I think.
Okay, good. It's good to see you smiling, Claire. I know there's a lot of weight on you there for a while there. But does anyone here? So we'll just wait to see how far we get for the next meeting. Did we want to continue this, Lupe? Or?
Yes.
Okay, we'll continue this for more report, an updated report.
We have a meeting in January, so that should be timed.
Okay, after Thanksgiving, after Christmas, after New Year's. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for your hard work. Anybody here for public comment?
I don't believe there are any public
No?
comment cards.
All right, folks. Well, thank you for hanging in there, and I appreciate your presence.